heavens and the earth. Oh, got it. Okay, thank you. Yes, the one that hit me was, that really got me into this stuff was God, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And it suddenly hit me in my 30s that there was a relationship between my faith and my environmentalism. So I am new to this stuff, really. Well, I mean, I've been new, relatively speaking, for my age. So since then, you know, for the next 25 years, I was motivated, hugely motivated to get the church involved with protecting God's world, because, you know, if we don't, you know, we're the ones that should be leading this stuff, right? So how can the church respond? The world is in a mess, right? We know, oh gosh, just this year, you know, it's 49 degrees in Pakistan. Birds were falling out of the sky. You know, 49 degrees in Canada last year. You know, the heat we're planning for this weekend, you know, and they talk about it on the radio, and quite often they don't mention why it's happening. It's become normal, the new normal, but of course this isn't the new normal, because it's going to get worse. This is at 1.2 degrees total global warming, and we are seeing intensification of weather events that require our response. I think they require our response. Interestingly, I don't know if you heard that Patrick Vallance was, I don't know if has anyone seen Patrick Vallance's video that he gave to the MPs in Parliament on Monday?
No, is it available?
It's available, yes. In fact, I can try and find it and put it out. If you put your email addresses in the chat, I can copy and I'll send it to you. But apparently he didn't mention tipping points. So obviously it was really good, because it got Boris behind speaking prophetically at COP. But things are bad enough without even talking about tipping points. But for me, it's the tipping points and the feedback mechanisms that underlie why it is so urgent, why we have to act in the next few years, and we cannot leave it to the next generation. And I first heard about tipping points when I was pregnant with my first child 20 years ago, and they were saying then that if the Greenland ice sheet melts, do you know why a radiator is white? Because white reflects energy, reflects heat, reflects light. And so that's why the poles of the earth are like our air conditioning units, because white ice at the poles will reflect 80 to 90% of the energy coming from the sun, whereas dark sea and dark land absorbs 80 to 90% of the energy coming from the sun. So once you've started melting these poles, it'll start accelerating the heating, and it will accelerate. It's a self-reinforcing feedback mechanism. And they said then 23 years ago, that the Greenland ice sheet would start irreversibly melting at 1.7 degrees global warming. Now, interestingly, Sir David King thinks we've already started that process, and even at 1.2 degrees, it's going to be extremely difficult to refreeze the Arctic and the Greenland ice sheet. And then, of course, once the temperatures increase because of these natural feedbacks, other feedbacks happen. For example, the Amazon rainforest, which they say will start burning up and turning into savanna at around between 3 and 5 degrees. And we're looking at the beginning of that now at even 1.2. So these are dominoes we should not be playing with. And to stop us getting to this point, that paper of the map I just showed just now was put out in 2018, and it was just a theoretical idea based on history rather than looking at models. But they did say that they thought likely point at which these tipping points start falling would be between 1.5 and 2 degrees. And so it's because of that work and a lot of other work that the IPCC, the Climate Change Committee, and the International Energy Agency, which was set up to look after fossil fuel interests, have been saying that if governments are serious about the climate crisis, there can be no new investments in oil, gas and coal from this year. That was 2021. So, you know, this is for everybody, right? This means everybody, including us, and even more it applies to us because we started this industrial revolution and we have the technology and the science and the scientific and the economy to switch to renewables. And of course we know this, don't we? When people say we need oil and gas because of Ukraine, we know that insulation and electric heat pumps will cut ties to Russian gas, and renewables, of course, will cut ties to Russian gas quicker than new North Sea gas and oil fields. We know that. It takes very little time to put up a windmill, but it takes years, a decade or so, to look for and start rolling out new oil. And where is the church at this time? The Old Testament, you know, our Bible is full of prophets speaking uncomfortable truths to their generation. And this, it's really hard to get your head around something as big and huge and, you know, impossible as climate change, the climate crisis. But if somebody should be talking about it, I feel so strongly it should be the church. This is our job to tell the truth at this time. I mean, people are saying, what is the point of the church at this time? And I do think that we have a role to play, a huge role to play. And I think God is calling us to fulfill that role. So what can we do? Personal lifestyle choices are all important because I think they are part of our Christian discipleship under God and our personal integrity. When we start talking about what we do, what to do, what other people should do, what the government should do, I think we do have to have our own house in order. But the problem is that we use up our contribution, our carbon budget for the day before we get up in the morning because of where we live and because we're embedded in the system, aren't we? So we can't get to zero, we can't get to live a carbon-free life, but we can certainly do things to help push the market and help, you know, advertise to our friends and help, you know, to witness to our friends about how we should be living. We can certainly do that, but personal action is not enough. And the church, I do think, should be a prophetic role, prophetic voice of change and hope. And this is what Operation Noah is trying to inspire. So what we do, we have a Tenets of the King study guide. Now, can I tell you that this we wrote in 2017, so it needs updating, and we are in the process of updating it. And there are other guides out there that might be better for you. We particularly did this guide to try and reach the evangelical churches that were a little probably less far down the line in terms of thinking about climate. So if you're from an evangelical church or you know people who are evangelicals, this is probably the thing for you. But if you can wait till September, October, you'll get a better version. Climate Sunday, that's something we started out and we got all the churches and all the Christian environmental organizations involved in coming up to COP26, and we are still doing that now, and it is still useful. It has some useful resources on it. Right Now campaign, hopefully if you were listening to Schulpeter this afternoon, you'll have heard about that. I'll go quickly into that. And we do some great webinars. Honestly, if you go to our website, we have the top people because of the divestment campaign, which is the church Christian divestment campaign, probably worldwide actually. Even though we've just, we've had one member of staff, we've got a few more recently, but we do get some great webinars. So do have a look at the webinars. The one we did recently called The Global Church and the Fossil Fuel 5. It had Bill McKibben, who speaks absolutely amazingly, but it wasn't just him that was so good. It also had a Ukrainian climate scientist and somebody from Global South, and it was just excellent. So do, if you have time, have a look for those.
We've got 9 minutes.
Hey, great. Okay, I'm going to whiz through. Right, there's our Tenets of the King. And again, I will go whiz through that. Right now, hopefully most of you have heard about it, but it's about the divestment campaign. You cannot lose, because even if you do not get your church to divest, you have explained to them why we need to divest. So we want the church to divest, of course, but we also want the church to take a leading role in the national debate. And so you can debate it, you can talk about it. It's a really good, good sort of framework to talk about the climate crisis and the Christian environmental need to act. We recently had a divestment announcement. And lots of churches have already divested. It's only the Church of England that and the Catholic Church that still has investments. So what you can do yourself, you can divest your own church. And my church didn't have investment because it didn't have any money, but it put through a PCC agreement to not invest. Therefore, it was still making a prophetic statement. We will not invest in fossil fuels because we think we shouldn't be investing in things that are destroying God's creation. So it was a useful prophetic thing to do and say, and of course the PCC were happy to do it because it didn't cost any money, and it's just something to do. Right, we are very good at not reinventing the wheel. And therefore, we never do things if they're already out there. So we tend to join in with other Christian organizations that are saying the same thing. For example, the Climate Emergency Toolkit is a great thing for your church to do to speak on the climate crisis. The Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill is also called 0 Hour Now, is also a really good platform for talking about the climate crisis, and a really good thing to get involved in. And again, you can give a Christian voice to that, which is really useful. And the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty is a new campaign, global campaign, which again, you can sign up to. You can get your church to say, right, let's sign up to this because this is part of good things happening in the world. I think this might be my last slide. Right, how can I help? So I'm hoping you're asking that question to yourself. So we can please pray for us and the climate crisis and help us to, know how to work to help on that. Sign up for a monthly newsletter. Go to our website and click a link to sign up to our monthly newsletters, and they only come once a month, and they have all the latest climate, Christian information. Support us financially. You can do that through our website. So run a Bible study, as I said, particularly if you are the Tenets of the King we would recommend for evangelical churches. Divest your church and help your diocese to divest if you're in Church of England. There we go. That's it. I will stop sharing. That was a whiz through. Has anyone got any questions or comments? You're speechless. Would you like me to show any slides again? Sorry, I did whiz through it.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Does Operation Noah hold all the up-to-date information on which churches have and haven't divested?
Yes. And it is updating all the time. Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes the website might not be up to date.
And was there any I know this is very specific, but was there any up-to-date information about wells and whether they were or weren't divesting?
Yes. Wells had actually divested, but it hadn't told anyone.
Right. Okay.
So from our point of view, what is the point? What is the point of divesting if you don't tell anyone? Yeah. The whole point is to be a prophetic voice at this time and say, it's a climate emergency, everyone must act. So it's really their own silly fault if they don't, it was, plus I don't know if they did it for environmental reasons or if they did it because they didn't see, they could have done it for financial reasons, you see. Okay. So, but I think there was a discussion with the bishop upcoming, the interim bishop, and she was very understanding and very basically, because they've got a new bishop coming on board,
Yeah.
they didn't want to sort of make an announcement before he came. So
Okay.
hopefully they will announce it
Yeah.
before COP27. Yeah.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
3 minutes left. So
Hey!
does it get questions
Oh.
in before we have to vacate the room for
Okay.
our session?
How do you share this sort of information with youngsters who may already be scared and worried about their futures?
That is a really good question. Gosh, that is a really good question. I mean, from my point of view, I just know that it's better to be doing stuff. I mean, I'm totally with you. You don't have to think about it all the time, you know, but when you do think about it, actually do something about it. And so that's a big way. I know Green Christian has a borrowed time, has a program called Borrowed Time that's to deal with climate anxiety and eco anxiety and climate grief. And they have something that you can join starting in September online. And they also have a one that's set up for vicars and pastoral people to help others through it. So there's a program on, if you go to Green Christian website, you can find about it. But they're the experts in that.
Hi,
Nikki, yeah.
I think I'm right. You'll know her from Christian Climate Action. I believe Sue Hampton might have written a book on climate specifically for children.
Ooh,
So it might be worth having a Google.
Yes, Sue Hampton. Sue Hampton, yes. She might well have done, yes.
Yeah. I'll have a look, see if I can find it and put it in the chat.
But we haven't got the chat for very long, that's the thing. So Sarah, if you want to email, if you want to ask anything, just email the admin at operationnoah.org and I can send you like anything, links to stuff.
Thank you.
Any last questions?
I mean, I suppose I've got a difficult question to finish on. I wonder what is God's truth in the climate crisis? I mean, I find it quite difficult to stay positive and hopeful when you look around and see what's happening.
I mean, I think God's calling his church to act and we're not listening, is what I think. I think we need to step up.
I think I would add to that, say God, yeah, I totally agree. God's calling us into a participation with his promise and revelation to make all things new. And that involves our cooperation and participation, it seems.
Yeah.
But also there's something about nothing being lost, you know, everything we do, God can use, I think. So there's that as well. Yes, Nikki, you've got hands up again, or is that from before?
I have had a look. I can't find a children's book by Sue, but there are some children's books on the climate crisis. They may not be specifically Christian, but they are very much aimed at addressing children's concerns about the future in connection with the climate.
I don't know if you meant children or young people. So
Both. There are even for quite young children, but and then stuff for older ones as well. But yeah, not by Sue, I think. I've had a look.
I mean, there is no easy answer, right? There is no easy answer.
No.
I think we can't say everything's going to be fine, but I think we can say God will still be God and he will not leave us. I think we can say that.
Friends, it's time for us to, people will be starting logging in for the next session, which if you want to stay in room 3, that will be called Pastoral Care in a Climate Emergency.
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Follow one. So please do hang around if you want to join in with that workshop. If not, it's been a pleasure. And thanks again to Ruth. We can all share our appreciation for Ruth.
Thanks, Ruth.
Bye.
We appreciate it. Bless you all. Take care. Deborah, is that?
Yes, I am here. Sorry, I am here. Sorry, I've just been I've been switching rooms.
So it's all good. We've
Yeah.
literally only just managed to finish the other one in time. So it's
Yeah, great.
yeah, great.
Yeah.
Can I make you a co-host? Do you need to share your screen?
Yes, please, I do actually. Yeah, I've just got to make sure I've got it. This is always a bit nerve-wracking for me because I don't do a lot of PowerPoints on Zoom, so it's always a bit scary.